Welcome to the Surgical Edge podcast for surgical insights, reviews, discussions, and to stay updated. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are not just scratching the surface, we're cutting right through the scar tissue. We're tackling a procedure that I think really defines the term deceptively simple.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at the schedule and it just says incisional hernia repair.
Yeah.
But if you've ever actually been the one scrubbing in, you know that is a massive understatement.
Yeah, it really is the classic iceberg problem. You know, above the surface, sure, it's just a bulge, a hole.
Right.
But underneath, you're dealing with altered anatomy, massive amounts of scar tissue, potential bowel involvement. It's treacherous. It's one of the most variable operations in general surgery.
Exactly. And that is our mission today. We're doing a practical, stepwise walkthrough of open incisional hernia strategy.
I like that you use the word strategy.
Well, the sources we're analyzing, principles and practice of open incisional hernia repair, and some current guidelines, they make it so clear that this isn't just a technique you memorize. It's a campaign you plan.
Right. And we're pitching this, specifically at the new surgeon. Maybe you're a resident, a fellow, or a junior attending who just wants to refine their approach.
We want to take you from that first moment in the planning clinic all the way to the final skin suture.
Yeah.
But before we make that first incision, we have to get the mandatory housekeeping out of the way. This is important.
It is. Standard disclaimer. Everything we discuss today is for educational and reference purposes only. We're analyzing literature to extract best practices. This is not specific medical advice. You must always follow your local guidelines, your hospital protocols.
Yeah.
And if you're a trainee, please, for the love of everything holy, listen to your attending.
Do not quote the deep dive while you're holding the bougie and arguing with your senior surgeon.
Please don't do that.
Okay, disclaimer noted. Let's get into phase one, the blueprint. Because, one of the biggest takeaways from the readings, if you wait until the patient's on the table to start planning,
you've already failed. Absolutely. The surgery starts in the clinic. Assessment is everything. Yeah. You're not just looking at a hole. You're evaluating the entire abdominal wall. You need to know the hernia size, the location, and crucially, you need to check for loss of domain.
Okay, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot. For anyone listening who might not be a surgeon, can we unpack that? Loss of domain sounds like a feudal land dispute.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a physiological crisis. It basically means the hernia is so massive that the intestines have been living outside the main abdominal cavity for so long that the abdominal cavity has actually shrunk. It's adapted to being empty.
So it's like a tenant moves out and the landlord converts the apartment into a tiny studio.
Perfect analogy. And if you try to force that tenant, the intestines, back into that tiny studio under high pressure, they won't fit.
Right.
You can cause respiratory failure. You can cause abdominal compartment syndrome. It's a disaster. So you have to assess that beforehand.
So you're assessing the anatomy, but also the patient attached to the hernia. The source material was really aggressive about optimization.
It has to be. You identify the risk factors: smoking, COPD, diabetes, steroid use, poor nutrition, all of it.
And the literature is clear on this.
I mean, crystal clear. You generally do not just operate on a smoker with a massive, complex hernia. You optimize them first. You get them to stop smoking. You get their HbA1c down. You are fundamentally changing the biology of their healing.
You're stacking the deck in your favor.
Before you even wash your hands. Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we've optimized the patient. Now we're making strategic decisions. It seems like the days of just stitching it shut, primary closure, are mostly gone for anything big.
For large hernias, yes. You have to assess the tension. If it's high tension, it will fail. The tissue will just tear through.
So what's the decision tree?
You have to decide. Do I need a component separation to slide the muscles together? And then the big debate. Where does the mesh go?
Ah, the eternal debate. Onlay, sublay, or intraperitoneal?
Right. And we'll get into those planes in a minute. But part of this pre-op phase is also planning for the catastrophe. You have to anticipate complications. If the patient's had 4 previous operations, you need to be mentally prepared for a bowel resection.
Which brings us to the room, the patient's on the table. Phase 2, the setup. And I want to highlight something the guidelines really emphasized visually, the wide skin prep.
Yes. I love that you brought this up. Such a simple thing, but it saves you.
Well, the description is tense. It says prep from nipple to mid-thigh and flank to flank. It looks like you're prepping for 3 different surgeries.
It feels excessive until the moment you need it. The whole concept is about not painting yourself into a corner.
Right.
Let's say you get in and the defect is twice as big as the scan suggested, or you find some pocket of infection laterally. If you've only prepped a neat little square,
You're stuck.
You're stuck. You can't extend your incision. You can't raise flaps. The wide prep gives you tactical freedom.
Room to maneuver. Okay, so we're prepped, draped, and entering what I call the danger zone. Access and adhesiolysis. This is where the heart rate usually spikes a bit.
It should. If it doesn't go up a little here, you're not paying attention. You're cutting through a previous scar. The anatomy is distorted. The bowel could be plastered right up against the wall.
So what's the technique? The sources mention a goal of exposing the whole defect.
Right. You don't just poke a hole. You want to excise the old scar and expose the entire hernia defect plus the surrounding normal fascia. And a key tip here is controlling superficial bleeding early.
Why is that so critical, besides just keeping the field clean?
It preserves the skin and subcutaneous vascularity. If you're sloppy or you're just burning everything with cautery, you're killing the blood supply to the skin edges.
And that leads to wound breakdown later.
Guaranteed. So, sharp dissection. Control bleeders precisely.
Now let's talk about the areolar plane. The text describes this as the target you're hunting for.
This is the holy grail of hernia dissection. The areolar plane is that loose, wispy tissue plane between the hernia sac itself and the subcutaneous fat.
Oh, okay.
If you find this plane, you can peel the fat off the sac almost bloodlessly. It's beautiful when you find it.
Like peeling a very delicate orange.
A very delicate orange, yes. The strategy is to dissect down, find the sac, then circumferentially free it from the fat before you open it.
And that is the big warning in the notes. Don't enter the sac yet.
Correct. Fight the urge. There could be a loop of small bowel stuck right under that scar. If you just slash through, you've made a hole in the bowel before you've even started the repair. You want to free the sac all around so it's like a mushroom cap sticking up. Then and only then do you open it.
And you pick your spot carefully when you do.
You pick the virgin abdomen if you can. Soft spots away from the scar, away from where you suspect the worst adhesions are. You open in a controlled way.
Okay, we're in. Suction out any fluid, send it for culture if it looks weird, and now we start the tedious part, adhesiolysis.
This is all about patience. You have to be systematic. Start superficially, work deep, use sharp dissection scissors, a knife, and be very, very judicious with diathermy.
The electric cautery.
Because of the thermal spread.
Exactly. You think you're safe, but heat travels. You can burn the bowel wall without realizing it and might not show itself for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So cold steel is often safer. And the critical check, visually inspect the bowel constantly.
And if you nick the outer layer, the serosa...
Repeat immediately. Don't say I'll get that later. You'll lose it. Stitch it now.
And if the bowel is actually non-viable, ischemic, or full of holes, you have to resect it.
And this is a major pivot point in the surgery. The sources really stress this.
It's a huge pivot. You've gone from a clean case to a clean contaminated or contaminated field. That completely changes your mesh choice.
You can't put a standard mesh in there.
No, you can't put standard polypropylene into a field full of bacteria. It's a recipe for disaster. You'll end up taking it out. You have to switch to a biologic or a bioabsorbable mesh. Okay, that's a crucial decision. Let's say best case scenario, though. Bowel is safe, back in the abdomen. We're moving to phase 3, the architecture of repair.
First step, define the defect. You clear the fascial edges until you see healthy, robust fascia. You need good timber to build a house.
And the source mentions debulking scar tissue here, but with a warning.
Yes, remove the junk scar that won't hold a suture. But, and this is important, don't over-resect. If you cut away too much, you're just making the hole bigger.
And a bigger hole means more tension.
More tension, it's a balance.
Okay, let's talk about creating the space for the mesh. The sources detail sublay and onlay positions. Break those down for us.
So the sublay, or retrorectus repair, it's kind of the gold standard for a lot of surgeons, the Rives stop-it technique. You incise the anterior rectus sheath and you develop a plane behind the rectus muscle.
So the mesh is sandwiched inside the abdominal wall.
Exactly. It's sandwiched. The muscle is on top, protecting it from the skin, and the posterior fascia is below, protecting the bowel. It's got great blood supply, generally lower recurrence rates.
And the onlay.
Onlay is superficial. You sew the fascia closed, then you place the mesh right on top, under the fat. It's technically easier, but it has higher rates of seroma,
Fluid collection.
and infection because it's closer to the skin. If you do it, the text says you must extend the dissection at least 5 centimeters beyond the margins.
Now, you mentioned component separation earlier. When do we pull that trigger?
You pull it when the tension is too high to close the midline. The goal of a modern repair isn't just to patch the hole, it's to restore the midline.
You want the muscles to meet again so they can function.
Right. If the gap is too wide, you can't just pull them together. It's like trying to zip up jeans that are 3 sizes too small. So component separation is like letting out the seams. You cut the lateral tendon layers, external oblique or transversus abdominis, and that releases the tension, letting the muscle slide to the center.
It's specialized tailoring for the abdominal wall.
That is a great way to put it.
Okay, we've mobilized layers. Now we are sewing the fascia. And here is where the source material gave us a very specific number. The golden ratio. This felt like the real insider tip.
It is. If you remember nothing else from this deep dive, remember this. The 4-to-1 ratio.
4-to-1. Break it down.
This comes from a ton of research on preventing dehiscence, the wound bursting open. You want a suture to wound length ratio of at least 4-to-1.
So if your incision is 10 centimeters long, you need to use at least 40 centimeters of suture material.
At least. It seems like a lot.
It does. Why is that better?
It's just physics. If you take big, wide bites far apart, you're concentrating all the tension on those 2 points. It strangles the tissue.
Like a wired cheese cutter.
Exactly. But if you take small bites, very close together, continuously, you distribute the tension evenly across the entire incision. It's much stronger.
The difference between holding a heavy weight with 2 fingers versus your whole hand.
That's it. So small bites, continuous suture, that is a killer tip.
Okay, fascia is closed. We're reinforcing with mesh. What are the hard rules?
Overlap, non-negotiable. The mesh must overlap the defect by at least 5 centimeters in all directions. Otherwise, the hernia just pops out around the edges.
And fixation, staples, stitches.
It depends. Retrorectus mesh is sort of held by the pressure, but you usually tack it to the posterior fascia. Onlay needs to be anchored well to avoid that dead space we talked about. You don't want it tenting up.
And if you're forced to go intraperitoneal, inside the abdomen.
Then the rule is, material matters. You absolutely cannot put standard polypropylene against the bowel.
It'll erode right through.
Like sandpaper. You must use a composite mesh with a protective coating or a biologic mesh, something designed for bowel contact.
Okay. Phase 4, the exit strategy. We're closing up. It's easy to check out mentally here, but the sources say this is where complications are born.
Correct. You have to manage the dead space. After a massive dissection, you've created a huge potential space between the muscle and the fat.
Fluid will fill that space.
It will. So drains. Closed suction drains are highly recommended for large spaces. You want to stuck those layers together, and when you're closing, reapproximate Scarpa's fascia.
The deep layer of the fats.
Yep. Stitching that layer takes tension off the skin and reduces the dead space. But be careful. Don't take such big bites you strangle the skin edges.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
Post-op. Patient is waking up. What are the marching orders?
Analgesia, obviously. But VTE prophylaxis preventing blood clots is huge. These patients are high risk for a PE. And then early mobilization. Get them up and walking.
What about those abdominal binders? Useful or just a comfort blanket?
The sources say, use them if your local practice supports it. They provide comfort, which helps patients move. But they don't replace a good surgical repair. And importantly, give clear instructions on lifting restrictions.
Right. Don't want them undoing your 4-to-1 closure by lifting a sofa.
Please don't.
Before we wrap, I want to pivot to the new surgeon checklist from the source material. I found this incredibly helpful. It's like a pilot's pre-flight check.
It's excellent. It breaks down the mental game. First, pre-incision. Verbally run through plan A and, more importantly, your bailout options with your trainer.
I love that term, bailout options.
You have to have them. Ask yourself aloud. If I can't close the fascia, what will I do? Bridge with mesh. Which mesh? Make the decision before the stress hits.
Okay. Second phase, intra-op.
Focus on gentle tissue handling and landmarks. Always know where normal fascia is. If you're deep in a hole of scar tissue and you get lost, stop. Find your landmarks. That's when you hurt things.
And finally, post-op documentation.
This isn't just bureaucracy. You need to record the defect size, the specific mesh type brand and material, the position, the fixation if you did a component separation.
Why is that level of detail so critical?
Because hernias recur. If this patient shows up in another ER 5 years from now, that surgeon needs to know exactly what is inside. Your operative note is the map for the future.
That's a great perspective. It's about patient safety down the line. So let's bring this all together. What's the core message?
The message is that an incisional hernia repair is a strategy. It requires respect. Plan widely. Remember the prep. Dissect carefully. Find that areolar plane. Measure your closure trust, the 4-to-1 ratio, and document everything.
It's about precision and respecting the anatomy. You aren't just patching a tire, you're reconstructing a functional wall.
Precisely.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We hope this stepwise walkthrough gives you a solid framework for your next case.
And here's a small request. If you found this useful, please share it with at least one colleague. Maybe send it to your resident group chat. These tips, especially the 4-to-1 ratio, can literally save a repair. Help us spread the word.
Definitely. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and our other social media pages. We'll post some visuals to go along with this discussion.
One final thought to leave you with. When you're standing there closing that abdomen, tired after a long case, just remember, the precision of your closure right then determines that patient's quality of life 5-10 years down the line. It's a heavy responsibility.
But it's exactly why we do what we do. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Stay sharp.
Thank you for listening to the Surgical Edge podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Help us grow and deliver even more relevant surgical content by pressing the support button. Your contribution truly makes a difference. And don't forget to share with us your advice, feedback, and the topics you would like us to include.